what I have been told is that the classes for you for GS will begin from the second. Have you been informed already? No. Okay. So basically, what is going to happen is that today is more of a sort of an introductory class, and actually the classes will start from the 2nd of June. Okay. The timings will be the same, and that is from 5 to 7:30, and that is the day when we'll actually start a more in-depth understanding of history, particularly the modern Indian history bit. Okay. The timing of the class will be from 5 to 7:30. So today is merely as a brief session of introduction and when the class starts on the 2nd of June, you'll be merged with another set of students who are already there. Now, the purpose of today's class is just to give you a broad sense about, say, how many of you have a basic idea of the exam structure and everything you already know? GS, prelims, mains, interview, prelims syllabus, main syllabus, right? Now, those of you who don't have should go back and see the syllabus. That's the first basic thing to do. What I'm going to do with you is I'll be discussing the modern Indian history bit in detail from the second. Okay. But today what I'm going to do with you is to give you a broad sense about history per se and history as an overall syllabus for the UPSC examination, whether it is from prelims, whether it is from mains perspective, या उसके आगे. One of the first things that and what we're going to do is at least get a broad bird's eye view about all that comes under the history section. देखिए, history as a section in your GS paper is an important section. In the prelims section, you'll get something to the tune of 15, 16, 17. That is the average number of questions out of the total 100 questions which have been coming in the past 3 or 4 years from the history section. There have been times जब कम भी question पूछे जाते हैं. There have been times when they've just asked 12 questions. There have been times where they've asked 19 questions also in the prelims examination. So it can vary. Eco थोड़ा सा volume. So firstly, when we talk about the weightage, that's the weightage in the prelims examination. Will be better. When we talk about the weightage in the mains examination, the mains examination weightage is somewhere to the tune that 70 to 80 marks out of 250 in GS paper 1 is where history questions come. GS paper 1 mein, mains mein, there is history, there is geography, and there is social issues. So ये तीन चीजें आती हैं in GS paper 1, right? So it's almost 70 marks of history, 70-80 marks of geography, 70-80 marks of social issues. So paper 1 का almost 1/3 weightage is history as far as the mains examination is concerned. But when you look at the syllabus, what you will find is that in terms of the syllabus, here the syllabus is ancient Indian history, medieval, modern Indian history, and art and culture. Okay, that is the syllabus for prelims. But when it comes to the syllabus for the mains examination, that is the place where you'll find they've added 2 more things. One is post-independence history, meaning the period from 1947 or 1950 all the way up to 1990. And also there is world history, or world history covers the period, meaning not India's history, but history largely of Europe, US, and the rest of the world, broadly, for the period that is somewhere between 1757 or 1750s to up till 1990, which includes many other milestones. Now, so firstly, this is the syllabus. For mains, all of this plus this is added. So these are the new things. Okay. So mains will also, yes, it will have your ancient and medieval and modern, but apart, and art and culture, but apart from that, there is also these things which have been added in the syllabus. Okay. Now the thing with, and this is where the application of history is fairly direct. जो इन्हीं से क्वेश्चन पूछा जा रहा है, अभी is not the time to talk about how this affects your essay writing या ethics, क्योंकि history और historical examples or arguments can be used in many other places, not just in the history section. But it's too early to talk about any of it. But अगर आप इतना भी समझेंगे पहले, then the first thing to understand also is that in terms of history and its syllabus, there is a certain advantage of reading history. History क्या है? History is not like international relations नहीं है, economy नहीं है, where things are gonna change. तो ज़्यादा change syllabus में कुछ खास होना नहीं है. Only thing is that maybe if it's the 100th year of World War I, then a question related to World War I आने का chance बढ़ जाता है. तो basically history में the advantage is that because the syllabus doesn't change, events don't change, so it's a fairly static subject. The advantage of it being a fairly static subject is कि अगर आपने उसको ढंग से 2-3 बार पढ़ लिया तो फिर वो कहीं नहीं जा रहा है. उसको आपको 6 महीने साल में कुछ अपडेट करने की जरूरत नहीं है. Okay, which is not the case with some other subjects. The disadvantage, if this is the advantage of history, there is, I would say, a disadvantage. There is a challenge in history. The challenge of reading history is that the syllabus for history is way larger than the syllabus for polity, economy, geography, for all these subjects. What you will see is कि जितने subsections history में हैं, उतने आपके GS के किसी और subject में नहीं है. Okay, so I like give or take, अगर आप ज्यादा भी ना करें तो भी 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 and 6, तो 6 तो broad parts हैं ही. तो आप इकोनॉमी पढ़ेंगे तो उसमें आप पढ़ेंगे इंडियन इकोनॉमी एंड वर्ल्ड इकोनॉमी. ज्योग्राफी पढ़ेंगे उसमें वर्ल्ड ज्योग्राफी, इंडियन ज्योग्राफी, फिजिकल ज्योग्राफी, ह्यूमन ज्योग्राफी, इतना ही है. ओके, सो द डिवीजन, द ब्रेड्थ ऑफ द सिलेबस जो हिस्ट्री का है वो काफी बड़ा है. स्कोप ऑफ द सिलेबस काफी ज्यादा है. व्हेन आई एम सेइंग ब्रेड्थ, आई एम सेइंग द हॉरिजॉन्टल कवरेज. नाउ why I am saying horizontal coverage काफी ज्यादा है, the breadth of the syllabus is very high, because even though the breadth of the syllabus is very high, और ये एक challenge है क्योंकि आपको बहुत सारी चीजें पढ़नी पड़ेंगी, but there is again एक positive side ये है कि the depth of the syllabus is relatively limited. मतलब एक किसी भी सब्जेक्ट को, फॉर एग्जांपल वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री पढ़ना है, आपको वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री कितना डेप्थ में पढ़ना है, हाउ डीप विल यू गो इनटू दैट सब्जेक्ट, इज गोइंग टू बी डिटरमाइंड बाय द वेटेज इन द एग्जाम, हाउ मेनी क्वेश्चंस रफली आर आस्क्ड फ्रॉम दैट एरिया इन द एग्जाम, एंड यू विल फाइंड दैट फॉर मेनी ऑफ दीज एरिया डेप्थ इज नॉट टू मच. मतलब फॉर एग्जाम्पल in world history we read American Revolution also, French Revolution also, Industrial Revolution also, Russian Revolution also, Communist Revolution in China also, many other revolutions. But we don't spend 10 lectures on American history. So the amount of weightage that we give to any section, say to world history, is determined by its weightage in the exam. Why I am saying so? For example, let me give you a sense. Also, you should get, and you'll get a better sense if I tell you something first different when I'm saying breadth and depth. Ancient Indian history takes roughly around, say, 15-16 lectures to complete. Okay. Medieval Indian history takes something around 8 to 10 lectures to complete. Modern Indian history takes something around 25 lectures to complete. World history takes something around 10 to 12 to 13 lectures to complete. Post-independence history takes something around 4 to 5 lectures to complete. And art and culture takes something around 8 lectures to complete, roughly, give or take. Everything is plus minus 1 or 2. If I and you, we decide to just study world history in detail, we can have more classes on world history than all other areas put together. We can study world history also for 3 months if we want. But that is not the demand of the exam. Who are we to decide what is the demand of the exam or not? The solution is the past 5 years papers. The last 5 years papers will always tell you which subject, how much time, how much focus, how much depth you have to go in. एक बड़ा स्टैंडर्ड सवाल होता है. Students in the first class are very interested in knowing which big book to read. वो ज्ञान तो पूरा इंटरनेट पे है ही है कि which book to read, कहाँ से पढ़ना है ना. The question needs to change. कहाँ से पढ़ना है is not even a question anymore. कितना डेप्थ तक पढ़ना है is the more important question. Okay. So world history is a subject. वहां आप, if you see the weightage, you will find every year in the mains examination either one question comes or maximum 2 questions come or even 0 questions come. तो कई बार तो ऐसा होता है वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री से क्वेश्चन ही नहीं आया. Then the reflex of the student is, अरे इतना पढ़ने के बाद after reading 12 lectures you are saying एक भी क्वेश्चन नहीं आया. Solution: I'm very smart, no need to read वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री, छोड़, जिसका वेटेज कम है ना. दिस इज अ टेरिबल अप्रोच. अगर आपने वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री नहीं पढ़ा तो पहली बात आपको तो यहां तो नुकसान होगा ही और हर जगह नुकसान होगा. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, suppose you're writing an essay on democracy and authoritarian rulers, but if you have not read world history, so for example you will not know that what Hitler did from 1920s to 1939. तो जब आपको पता ही नहीं है, चलिए आपने हिटलर का नाम सुना होगा, but what Stalin was doing from 1924 to his death in 1952. So when you were to write an essay on democracy and challenges to democracy, आपके पास कोई historical example argument होगा ही नहीं देने के लिए, क्योंकि आपने वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री पढ़ी ही नहीं. डेमोक्रेटिक एक्सपेरिमेंट्स ऑफन फेल. अ क्लासिक एग्जांपल इज फ्रांस अंडर नेपोलियन. लेकिन हमें पता ही नहीं अगर नेपोलियन फ्रांस में कब आया था और फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन में क्या हुआ था एंड हाउ इट इनिशियली सक्सीडेड बट इवेंचुअली इट फेल्ड, तो हम नहीं लिख पाएंगे. सो देयर इज अनदर एंगल ऑफ हाउ ऑल ऑफ दिस इज यूजफुल एल्सवेयर, बट लेट्स फॉरगेट दैट. लेट्स जस्ट स्टिक हियर. Because the weightage is only 1 or 2 questions only in the mains examination, तो आर्ग्यूमेंट ये नहीं है कि हमें ये एरिया नहीं पढ़ना है. आर्ग्यूमेंट ये है कि हमें while reading this area we have to be mindful that we don't need to go too much in depth. That's the argument. Okay. For example, ancient Indian history 15 or 16 lectures में ही in the prelims examination it will end up giving you almost somewhere close to 4 to 5 questions in the prelims examination and at least 2 questions in the mains examination. Okay. Art and culture, the 7 or 8 lectures will be able to give you some 2 to 3 questions in the, at least 2 to 3 questions or even say 2 to 4 questions in the prelims examination and 1 to 2 questions in the mains examination. So you automatically know that these are very high yielding areas. मतलब इसमें आप literally हर लेक्चर में जो पढ़ रहे होंगे उससे कुछ ना कुछ क्वेश्चन आने का चांस है. So while reading this, what should be your approach? read on these topics as much as you can. That's not the approach while reading world history. Why am I telling you this? Is also for a reason. When you are reading world history, it is not a sensible thing that if you start reading a book, जिस टॉपिक से एक या दो या कोई क्वेश्चन नहीं आने वाला है, उस पे आप यू आर एनीवेज डूइंग क्लासेस, यू आर मेकिंग नोट्स, तो बस इतना करिए. उस टॉपिक पे इफ यू गो अहेड एंड स्टार्ट रीडिंग अ 500 पेज बुक, तो आपका हो गया. मीनिंग you will not be able to do it because you have so much else to read also. Okay, so which book to read? Should you only use class notes or should you use class notes and books? It depends on the weightage of the topic. For example, I don't recommend at all to students that you should read a book on world history because the weightage does not justify at the moment reading a book on world history. If the syllabus was to change tomorrow, तो बात अलग है, ठीक है, but that's not the case right now. Would we recommend you to read a book on ancient and art and culture? Absolutely yes. Apart from whatever we do in the class. Okay, why? Because the weightage demands तो आपको ये पता होना चाहिए किसका क्या weightage है, and that is how you should have an approach. So there is no one approach for whole of history. Depending on each of the segment, there is a different approach. Firstly, there is no one common approach applicable to all GS subjects. वो भी नहीं है. जो आपका ज्योग्राफी का अप्रोच है वो आपका हिस्ट्री का अप्रोच नहीं है. Neither will it apply to economy. But because history is so broad in scope, the approach for world history is not the approach for ancient Indian history and vice versa. Okay. So that's one thing. So you should know firstly what a broad sense of the weightage. For example, a modern Indian history से देखेंगे that out of say almost 50% questions, मतलब give or take out of 15-16 questions, अगर बहुत ही बुरा ईयर है for modern Indian history तो 5 questions या 6 questions आएंगे. अच्छा ईयर है तो 50% of the prelims history के section में if 15 questions are coming, almost 50% questions will come from modern. Meaning that in a given year, in the prelims examination, 5, 6, 7 questions easily can come in the prelims examination, and 2 to 3 questions in the mains can come from what? Modern. Meaning modern is an extremely important area. Now, if you see, you're like covering something around 25 lectures and you're getting something around 9 or 10 questions, give or take. Prelims or mains दोनों को मिला लीजिए आप. Meaning that the weightage is also high, and you see we are not giving more lectures to any other topic as much as we are giving to modern. Why? Because there's a difference again. UPSC doesn't ask easy questions from modern. Meaning from modern India, okay, now what I'm telling you is the third thing. One is syllabus, other is weightage. कि किस एरिया से कितने क्वेश्चन पूछे जा रहे हैं. The third important dimension is to see the difficulty level of the question. Meaning, you will find that questions from modern Indian history, when are being asked, they are being asked in more what? Depth. More in-depth, more hidden questions are asked in modern Indian history from more in-depth coverage, which require more in-depth coverage, which is not the case in world history. In world history, if you'll see the past 5 years questions, they will ask you fairly straightforward questions. Okay? But that's not the case with modern. For example, when you read modern Indian history, आप देखेंगे, देखिए हिस्ट्री का क्या है, जैसे मैंने बोला सिलेबस तो बदलना नहीं है, तो मॉडर्न इंडिया का भी सिलेबस बदलना नहीं है. If the syllabus is not going to change, and every year you have to make 6 or 7 questions for prelims. If the syllabus is not going to change and you have to make 6 or 7 questions every year for prelims, तो क्या होगा? You may expect that questions will be repeated. But you go and see the last 10 years questions, you will hardly find one or two questions. There are one or two questions, only one or two questions in modern Indian history getting repeated. Meaning, they make it a point to not ask the same question that they've asked before. So, what they do is that they don't repeat questions. But if they don't repeat questions, then what do they repeat? Because syllabus तो same है. They repeat topics or areas. For example, no year will pass in UPSC. UPSC paper cannot be made without asking questions on Gandhi. In fact, Gandhi is one person who may or may not be relevant in Indian politics anymore, but is definitely relevant in UPSC preparation. Every year, at least 250 to 300 marks questions are asked only on one person, and that is Gandhi. Gandhi is asked in GS paper 1 in history, Gandhi is asked in economy, Gandhi is asked in polity or governance, Gandhi is asked in ethics, Gandhi is asked in essay. Okay. So, and as I'm saying, prelims में भी या mains में भी कोई साल नहीं जाता कि question गांधी पे ना आए. तो by then तो all the questions on Gandhi should have already been asked. But that is not the case. You will barely find a question being repeated. तो क्या होगा? जो easy question थे गांधी पे वो खत्म हो चुके. Now is the time to ask more nuanced, more in-depth questions on Gandhi. For example, some of you may eventually give state civil services examinations, etc. There you will say Gandhi's first movement in India was Champaran, then it was Kheda, then it was Ahmedabad mill strike. In UPSC, they don't ask any long these questions. Which was Gandhi's first protest, first satyagraha, all this basic stuff they don't ask. What they ask the question in mains, what would have been the shape of Indian freedom struggle if Gandhi would not have been there? This is a mains examination question, I think, 2017. If Gandhi was not present in the freedom struggle, how would Indian freedom struggle shape up? The next year they asked the question, compare the views of Gandhi and Bose. 2 years before, they asked the question, compare the views of Gandhi and Ambedkar. So what you will find is they will keep changing. Then is there no use of looking at the previous year questions? Is that what we are saying? No. It's extremely useful. क्योंकि आपको समझ में आता है कि यूपीएससी किस तरह के क्वेश्चन बना रहा है. The purpose of looking at the previous year papers, and by previous year I mean that आप 5 साल के पेपर देखिए क्योंकि पैटर्न बदलता रहता है. So the purpose of looking at previous year questions is that you get a sense of what kind of questions are being framed. Nobody is going to ever ask you where was Gandhi born, which year was he born, 1869, which year Gandhi went to South Africa, name, dates. These kinds of factual questions UPSC does not ask, because these are the kind of questions which can be easily repeated. आप पिछले 10 साल में देख लीजिएगा, गांधी, नेहरू, अंबेडकर, किसी की भी बर्थडे, मूवमेंट, द डे ऑन विच दे लॉन्च्ड अ मूवमेंट, ये पूछा उन्होंने, कभी नहीं पूछते. ओके, सो यू गेट अ सेंस ऑफ पैटर्न ऑफ व्हाट काइंड ऑफ क्वेश्चंस दे आर framing. All of this is done to ensure that they don't have to repeat a question. Secondly, they get to ask more analytical question. Factual questions भी पूछे जाते हैं prelims में. ऐसा नहीं है कि factual questions history से नहीं पूछे जाते हैं prelims में. पूछे जाते हैं. But those facts are also substantive facts. For example, if by the time we meet on the 2nd, the exit polls will be out, a substantive fact would be that Mr. Modi will become probably only the 2nd Indian Prime Minister ever to receive a 3rd term. I may be wrong also, but whether I am right or wrong, that time will tell. But that's a substantive fact. What is the irrelevant fact is whether he won it on 2nd June or 6th June. Do you get it? So UPSC is not interested in facts which are not substantive. They are interested in facts which are very significant or have a major impact. Okay. So history में facts और factual चीजें भी cover करनी है, लेकिन उसका एक pattern है. Okay. And you will get a sense. तो आपको क्या करना चाहिए when you go back today? Just buy a 10-year Arihant या किसी का भी जो MCQs वाला solved book आता होगा ना, and go through the history questions of the past 10 years and just don't go through, try to solve them. Okay, pick up question papers and try to solve them. You will be like, what is the point of solving when I don't even know anything? This, you may not know anything. For example, even if you don't know when Shivaji was born and there's a question on Shivaji, try to do it. What it will do is, अगर आप उस क्वेश्चन को सॉल्व करने की कोशिश, सॉल्व मतलब आप क्या करिए, टेक आउट दोस क्वेश्चन पेपर, टेक द हिस्ट्री सेक्शन और टेक अ ब्लैंक शीट और आप एजुकेटेड गेस मारने की कोशिश करिए. ठीक है. व्हाट इट विल डू इज, स्लोली व्हेन यू ट्राई टू रीड अ क्वेश्चन, गो थ्रू द ऑप्शंस एंड ट्राई टू मेक एन अटेम्प्ट, you will slowly get a sense of what kind of questions are framed. So when I'm discussing with you in class something about Marathas and Shivaji, you are likely to connect. अच्छा इसको कुछ पूछा था, है ना. तो जो काम आपको करने का है वो दो ही है. अभी आपको मार्केट में जाके बुक नहीं खरीदना है, ये भी खरीद लूं और ये भी खरीद लूं और वो भी खरीद लूं में नहीं पढ़ना है. यू बाय अ प्रीवियस ईयर पेपर, 10 years का prelims का, get the syllabus and go through the syllabus and go through the question paper. Okay. For example, we are going to start from modern Indian history. When you come for the class for the 2nd, try to make it a point कि आप 10 साल के जितने मॉडर्न इंडियन हिस्ट्री के क्वेश्चन आए, एक साल में कितने ही आए होंगे, 6-7, 10 साल में कितने ही आएंगे, 3-60, 60-70, वो क्वेश्चन आप करके आने की कोशिश कीजिए. आपसे कितने होंगे 60-70 में से 5-6 भी हो जाए तो बहुत अच्छी बात है. बट यू विल गेट अ सेंस ऑफ द पैटर्न विच इज बीइंग आस्क्ड एंड ट्राई टू डू देम क्रोनोलॉजिकली, मीनिंग 10 साल पुराना वाला सबसे पहले करिए, फिर रीसेंट पे आइए. क्यों? यू विल सी अ चेंज इन पैटर्न ऑल्सो. और वो चेंज इन पैटर्न यू विल बी एबल टू अप्रिशिएट मोर व्हेन वी आर इन द क्लासेस, बट यू विल गेट अ ब्रॉड सेंस फर्स्ट. Is that point clear? Yes. Now let me come back here, and what I'll be discussing with you are a couple of other things also as we go forward in the class. So this is kind of the weightage. Medieval भी important है. अब देखिए, मैंने आपको एक चीज बोली थी कि छोड़ के कुछ नहीं जाना है इसमें से. मतलब सर वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री प्लेन में तो आता नहीं है, मेन में 1-2 क्वेश्चन आना है, आया नहीं आया इसकी भी कोई गारंटी नहीं है, तो छोड़ देते हैं. देखिए, आई टोल्ड यू द एडवांटेज ऑफ हिस्ट्री इज दैट द सिलेबस डज नॉट चेंज. इट्स अ स्टैटिक पार्ट ऑफ योर सिलेबस. इफ यू डू इट थरली, दिस इज वन पार्ट ऑफ योर सिलेबस जहां पे आपकी प्रिडिक्टेबिलिटी बहुत है कि अगर क्वेश्चन आया और आपने टॉपिक पढ़ा हुआ तो नंबर आएंगे. ओके. यूपीएससी में कट ऑफ कितने? If you see in the mains examination, the topper gets 50% marks. Topper के ही 50% marks आते हैं in the mains examination, right? So what is to be understood is that in the mains examination, each and every question is valuable. Okay? और वो हम बाद में आएंगे उस पे, but let me give you a broad sense why I'm saying so. When you see the history syllabus in the mains examination, there are roughly 6 to 7 to maximum 8 questions. इतने questions होते हैं मेंस में from history. इसमें what happens is there is the ancient also, there is medieval also, there is art and culture also, there is world history also, there is post independence history also, and there is modern Indian history. इतने तो एरिया हैं और इतने ही क्वेश्चन है. So what they do now in mains examination, and if you see the last 5 years questions, is they have started merging topics. Meaning, how many areas are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 areas are there, and only 7 questions you have to ask. If I see, what I'm trying to tell you is, I'm trying to tell you to see the syllabus from the viewpoint of the examiner. In this exam, whose opinion does not matter? Your. Matlab, student's opinion does not matter. Also, whose opinion does not matter? YouTube. Wo opinion bhi does not matter. Whose opinion matters? The examiners. The examiner has a fundamental problem. He has 6 or 7 questions to ask, and he has a huge syllabus to cover. What can he do? He has 1 or 2 ways of doing it. क्या? One way is कि ऐसा करता हूं, if I am setting the paper, I will ask from area 1, 2 and 3. Let me ask question from 1, 2 and 3 this year. Let me not ask from what? 4, 5 and 6. Meaning, I'm not asking, I'm asking 2 questions each. 2 from ancient, 2 from medieval, 2 from modern. हो गया है ना? तो what can I do? I can skip asking questions altogether. From where? I can skip asking questions altogether from say 4, 5 and 6. UPSC is not following this approach. What it is doing is, because you see what is UPSC doing, what is the problem with this approach? अगर मान लीजिए इस अप्रोच से क्वेश्चन पेपर सेट होता है, ठीक है, हम मान लें एग्जामिनर इज सेटिंग अ क्वेश्चन पेपर बाय दिस अप्रोच कि नहीं पूछ रहे इस साल आर्ट एंड कल्चर से और वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री से और पोस्ट इंडिपेंडेंस, अगले साल पूछ लेंगे. तो व्हाट इज द प्रॉब्लम इन दिस अप्रोच? द प्रॉब्लम फॉर यूपीएससी एग्जामिनेशन सेटर्स इन दिस अप्रोच इज, ये एग्जामिनेशन को ज्यादा रैंडमलेस या लक की तरफ ले जा रहे हैं. मतलब आप लकी थे, आपने नहीं पढ़ा आर्ट एंड कल्चर और नहीं आया क्वेश्चन आर्ट एंड कल्चर. दिस इज समथिंग दैट यूपीएससी डज नॉट वांट, नीदर एट प्रीलिम्स लेवल एंड डेफिनेटली नॉट एट मेंस लेवल. व्हाट इट वांट्स टू सी इज दिस. और आप एक चीज समझिए, if I have to set a paper for 10,000 people, क्योंकि 10,000 people roughly give or take right means, है ना, ये 10,000 people आ रहे हैं आपके कुछ 2.5-3 लाख लोगों में से जिन्होंने prelims दिया. So all these 10,000 people are good serious candidates, right? Out of these 10,000 people, I have to again filter and select 2,500 candidates. For every 4 people who write the mains, 1 goes to the interview, and for every 3 people who go to the interview, 1 makes it roughly give or take to the final list. So people who are writing the mains examination, ये 10,000 लोग are fairly serious candidates. ठीक है. तो मैं क्या चाहूंगा as an examination setter, that amongst these candidates, my question must have a differentiating value. You know, इसको question paper setting में कहा जाता है differentiating value of a question. Will my question, अगर आप मेरे question को एक छन्नी की तरह समझ लें, will my question be able to differentiate an average candidate from an above average candidate or not? CBSE exam, 10th, 12th board exam is a poor छन्नी. Everybody is 90%, सबके 90% आ रहे हैं, सबका साथ हो रहा है. बट दैट रियली डजंट हेल्प यूपीएससी. आपने सुना क्या कि टॉपर के और 800 रैंक सबके 90% ऊपर आ रहे हैं यूपीएससी के पेपर में? नहीं, बिकॉज क्वेश्चंस आर मेंट टू हैव अ डिफरेंशिएटिंग वैल्यू एंड थ्रू वन क्वेश्चन examiner must be able to, while checking, see is it an average answer, is it a bad answer or is it a above average answer. वहीं से डिफरेंस. तो क्वेश्चंस आर सेट इन द मेंस. देखिए प्रीलिम्स का जो पेपर होता है ना, उसमें 100 क्वेश्चन में से 15-20 क्वेश्चन वो होते हैं जो बहुत इजी होते हैं, सब कर सके. उसके बाद क्वेश्चंस का डिफिकल्टी बढ़ता है. मेंस में बहुत इजी क्वेश्चंस बहुत कम होते हैं. इन वन पेपर इन जीएस यू विल हैव रफली 20 क्वेश्चंस. आउट ऑफ दोस 20 क्वेश्चंस only 1 or 2 questions are very simple straightforward questions. The rest questions are not meant to be simple or straightforward. So, and what we don't want, UPSC doesn't want, आपको पता है आज से 10 साल पहले यूपीएससी में कितने मार्क्स के क्वेश्चंस होते थे? इफ यू गो एंड सी मेंस में, और आप अभी मेंस के क्वेश्चंस अगर आपको देखना है, जस्ट सी द लास्ट 5 years क्वेश्चन पेपर. 2012-13 तक यूपीएससी मेंस क्वेश्चंस यूज्ड टू बी 60 मार्कर्स और 30 मार्कर्स और 20 मार्कर्स जीएस में. एंड देयर वाज ऑलवेज चॉइस. एक क्वेश्चन के अंदर 2 ऑप्शन होते थे, जो ऐसा ऑप्शनल में होता है ना आपके. अभी भी ऑप्शनल में अभी भी चॉइस होती है, राइट? दैट डू ओनली 3 out of 5 इन द सेक्शन. जीएस में भी होता था वो पहले, ठीक. एंड यू हैड अ चॉइस दैट फॉर अ 60 मार्कर यू वर गिवन 3 चॉइसेस, ए बी सी. आपको जो अच्छा लगे उस पर आप लिखिए. अब जीएस में ऐसा कोई चॉइस नहीं है. व्हाट हैज हैपेंड? द पैटर्न्स चेंज्ड फ्रॉम 60, 30 एंड टू 10, 12.5 एंड मैक्सिमम 15 marker questions and no choice. Why? Because choice introduces partly an element of luck. Partly an element of luck भी है ना. क्या 3 चॉइस में थे, बाकी 2 नहीं आते थे, बाय गॉड एक आता था और वो था उसमें, और हमने जो लिखा है वाह क्या लिखा, राइट? सो व्हाट यूपीएससी इज ट्राइंग टू डू इज स्टैंडर्डाइज द प्रोसेस, एलिमिनेट चॉइस. सो दैट इज व्हाई दे हैव इंक्रीज्ड द नंबर ऑफ क्वेश्चंस. इंक्रीजिंग द नंबर ऑफ क्वेश्चंस डज 2 things. पहले जीएस के एक पेपर में 20 क्वेश्चन नहीं लिखने होते थे आप, अब लिखने होते, बिकॉज दे डिक्रीज द वेटेज पर क्वेश्चन and increase the number of questions. What this does is that now I have 20 questions to ask in GS. It can ensure that I can cover more areas. समझ? Now, but as I am coming back to this problem, this approach UPSC is not following. ये 3 एरिया से सवाल ही नहीं पूछा. What UPSC is following is a different approach. What UPSC is doing is, I only have 7 questions or 6 questions to ask. Let me do something smart. What is smart? Ancient history and art and culture. Let me ask one question which connects both ancient history and art and culture. Let me ask one question which connects both world history and post-independence history. Let me ask one question which connects modern Indian history and world history. For example, I'll give you an example. How did World War I impact the Indian freedom struggle? World War I, world history topic. Indian freedom struggle, modern India. Cover both of them in one question. What it does is, जो लोग सिर्फ रट के आते हैं और दिमाग नहीं लगाते हैं, they will have a hard time answering such a question, because अब अरे ये तो पढ़ा ही नहीं, मॉडर्न अलग पढ़ा था, वर्ल्ड अलग पढ़ा था, ये तो जोड़ के पूछ दिया. So firstly, increases partly the difficulty level. Secondly, ensures कि स्टूडेंट को अपना दिमाग भी लगाना पड़ेगा, बस जो रटा और लिख दिया उससे सिलेक्शन नहीं होगा. Thirdly, it allows them to in 5 or 6 question cover the whole syllabus. नहीं दिया वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री पे पूरा क्वेश्चन सेपरेट. In one question I merge world and modern Indian history together. So this is what UPSC is doing. Okay, so it's important. देखिए जो मैं आपको समझा रहा हूँ ये समझने के लिए आप अभी जो मेरे से सुन रहे हैं इसको प्रैक्टिकल देखिए घर जाके लास्ट 5 years के क्वेश्चन पेपर. When I'll be teaching modern India with you, I'll tell you all the questions जो जहां से पूछा गया है ये ऐसे पूछा है वो, but you should be doing that work yourself. When you're coming to classes, you should avoid one approach. Which approach? Maggie approach. 2 मिनट में कुछ नहीं किया और मैगी बन गई. ये 2 मिनट में नहीं बनेगी मैगी. Please don't make Maggie. Get out of the approach which I also call as a Swiggy approach. मैंने फोन से खाना ऑर्डर किया है तो अब वो आएगा 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 मेरे सामने आएगा, कोई खिला भी. Spoon feeding does not work in this examination and will not work. Why? Because of this reason. I have only telling you what is happening in history. When you study geography, there would be a nuance that probably a geography faculty is more fit to kind of discuss it with you. But this is broadly one thing you should keep in mind. Now, यहाँ पे यहाँ तक पहले, if you want to ask something, once we start actually discussing modern India in detail, तो बात अलग है. So you ask as much as you want. But anything that you first want to understand something about the syllabus as such. इस syllabus के broadly, history के syllabus के बारे में. किसी को कुछ कोई नहीं, थोड़ी देर में. Now, one important thing that I also want to tell you is how you should be reading any of these topics. चाहे वो ancient हो, modern हो, medieval हो. जो मैंने आपको पहले ही बोल दिया कि go through the syllabus, go through the last 10 years prelims questions and the last 5 years mains questions. ये तो आप करिए, ठीक है. अभी जाके नेक्स्ट देखिए, अब मैं आपको जो बताने जा रहा हूं ये आप जो अब नेक्स्ट आपको बता रहा हूं ये आपके ऑलमोस्ट हर सब्जेक्ट में लग जाएगा, ठीक है, फॉर यूपीएससी. See, what is going to happen is you are starting, और मैं मॉडर्न इंडिया के एग्जाम्पल लेता हूं आपसे ना, क्योंकि अभी हमने मॉडर्न इंडिया पढ़नी है के बाद. In modern India, we'll cover a period something from the tune of 1700 to 1947. We'll cover this roughly around 25 lectures or so. And these 25 lectures will be, थोड़ा आपको 1-2 शुरू के लेक्चर्स के बाद काफी दर्द होगा, बिकॉज आपके जो ब्रेन मसल्स हैं उसको हम will really put them to use. It's like going to a gym. It's not a physical gym, it's a mental gym, where it will be more painful in the few initial days, then it will get better. But अब पूरी है. Not aware. So when you look at these 25 lectures, a practical thing that you need to understand is how do you plan your study. Like that's one question that everybody has in their mind. कि आपने क्या करना है और क्या नहीं करना है. See, one of the first things that I want you to do is keep in mind, and this is a proven rule, which years of cognitive research has proven, which most people in India do not follow because most people are not aware. A rule that whatever you read today or this can be even 10, sorry, this should be 10 and 27. Often people have this habit कि जो आज पढ़ा है उसी को आज जाके रिवाइज कर लेना. यही बताया गया आपको. It's the most useless way of revising. It's the most least productive way of revising. The more scientifically proven way of revising is, suppose today we read about the decline of Mughals. You revise it on the 3rd day. ओके जो आज मैंने आपको अभी क्लास में पढ़ाया, आपने घर जाके 15 मिनट में देख लिया, उसको रिवीजन नहीं कहते. Because what you often confuse is recency for memory. You confuse, अभी आप क्लास से सुन के आए तो आपको लगा अभी तो मुझे सब याद है, अभी आपको कुछ नहीं याद हुआ है. All you have developed is some familiarity with the subject. That you get to know the key protagonist, कौन था क्या था, broadly. But the best time is to revise it on day 3, then a week later on day 10, and then a week, and then almost a month later on day 27. The same thing you can apply to lecture 2. Your lecture 2 does happens on day 2. You repeat it on day 4. You repeat it on day 11. And you repeat it on day 28. Should you be making? People will ask many things. Sir, मैं book पढ़ूं नहीं पढ़ूं? Book and notes, how do I integrate? And all of those things. Should I make separate notes, merging my class notes with the book? सारी चीजें I'll eventually answer. But this is something that you can easily follow. But this is an approach which will work fine only when you're doing one subject. जब आप इस पे, अभी तो आप हिस्ट्री पढ़ रहे हैं, but a month later you will maybe be reading another different subject, say a subject like geography or polity or whatever. And that is the time when you will be dealing with a problem. How to juggle multiple subjects at the same time. अभी तो ये है ना, it's like you're playing with one ball, then you add another ball, then you add the third ball. Polity, economy, history, then geography, then maybe a couple of other balls. And how you juggle all of these subjects. That's something that nobody thinks about, especially preparing initially. वो आप 2-3 महीने बाद, 4 महीने बाद, अरे अब तो मैं पॉलिटी पढ़ रहा हूँ, जो हिस्ट्री तो आई रेड 2 months ago, हिस्ट्री इज ऑल साफ, राइट? प्रैक्टिकल प्रॉब्लम. एंड दिस इज समथिंग दैट यू विल फेस. दिस इज अ वेरी proven again way of dealing with this, and that is that you divide your self-study time. So what should be happening is that, say in the month of June you say studying history, in the month of July, let's talk about July, say hypothetically you're studying polity. Then if you're studying polity here, what is going to happen is, if you're going to study polity here, then while you're doing the first lecture of polity, you revise this first lecture of polity on again the day 3 and the day 10 and the day 27 rule. Okay. But on the 1st of June, what you should be revising, apart from polity, what you're reading is what you read on the 3rd of November, 27 days ago. मतलब जब आप पॉलिटी पढ़ रहे हैं तो आपको हिस्ट्री में द सेकंड और द थर्ड लेक्चर दैट यू रेड फॉर द फर्स्ट टाइम, दैट इज व्हाट यू शुड रिवाइज. सर ये क्या बकवास हुई, अब तो हम पॉलिटी पढ़ रहे हैं ना, तो अब हम हिस्ट्री क्यों रिवाइज करेंगे? द पर्पस ऑफ रिविजन इज टू रिकॉल थिंग्स दैट आर नॉट इन व्हाट वी कॉल एज योर वर्किंग मेमोरी, जो आपकी मेमोरी में किसी कोने में खो गई है. आई डोंट वांट टू गेट इनटू थिंग्स लाइक शॉर्ट टर्म, लॉन्ग टर्म वर्किंग मेमोरी, बहुत सारा होता है न्यूरोसाइकोलॉजी और व्हाटएवर, बट मैं आपको एकदम सिंपल से चीज बता रहा हूँ. A lot of people, nobody in India discusses, in India, मैं थोड़ा ये भी नहीं बोल रहा यूपीएससी, in India, nobody in India while teaching or studying consciously discusses learning strategies. All they discuss is ये टॉपिक पढ़ के 15 घंटे में टॉपिक कर ले रिवाइज, या 5 घंटे में या 3 घंटे में ये इंपॉर्टेंट टॉपिक से सवाल आएगा. You are in university, You would have always met your seniors or you would have told your junior, ये 5 टॉपिक कर ले, इससे हो जाएगा. Here, what we are saying is, A, that approach doesn't work because you can't leave any area. Second, more importantly, you should have a proper strategy that while you're doing polity, while you're revising polity, you're also revising what you read in history a month back. When you eventually go to August, hypothetically, and you're reading economy, on the day 1 of economy, you should be revising what you read in polity almost a month back. So what is it that you're trying to do? You are trying to tell your brain to start recalling pieces of information that were revised long ago. In UPSC preparation, it helps you in another way, and that is interlinkages. For example, say, madam, say you're reading polity and you read about constitutional development, okay, or how the constitution making process in India. That is something that you study in polity. But India's constitution, the process of drafting India's constitution technically started after 1947. But in reality, India's constitution was based on many things which had been going on in 1920s and 30s and 40s. So if you have read history and then you're reading constitution making process and polity, you will be able to link them together. Even while you're revising, you will be able to link them together. Okay. So interlinkages will also become much more easier if you are able to, do parallel things. Students often have a wrong strategy in UPSC when they start asking the question, और कौन सी किताब पढ़ें? ये तो मैं पढ़ ही रहा हूं, और कौन सी? How should I read polity from Lakshmikant also, from DD Basu also, from class notes also, and from God knows 5 other sources also, or for history, or it can be the same. A better question should be, how should I start revising so that I don't forget what I read 2 months ago? Okay, so that is something that will slowly help you. What I am trying to present to you are some problems that you have yet not. These are some of the problems that you have not yet faced, but these are problems you are expected to face. अभी नहीं, 3 महीने बाद. अभी से आप उन प्रॉब्लम्स को दिमाग में लेके चलेंगे तो, और उसके पोटेंशियल. दिस इज व्हाट प्लानिंग इज. प्लानिंग डजंट इन्वॉल्व प्लानिंग फॉर टुमारो. प्लानिंग इन्वॉल्व्स प्लानिंग फॉर अ ईयर लेटर व्हेन यू आर गोइंग टू गिव द एग्जाम, राइट? You all may have heard that the government of India used to make 5-year plans, right? That is what planning is. Planning is by inherent nature a more long-term activity, right? So that's one thing. Now let me add another level of complexity. ये तो पहले बोला एक subject को revise, फिर it's about juggling multiple subjects. But there's another problem you will face. Not in June, July, August, or in September or October or November, but somewhere from December onwards, or maximum from January onwards. As the new year dawns, every student is like, oh, there's time to focus on prelims. है ना? January आने के बाद सबको लगता है कि यार हो गया न्यू ईयर, पार्टी वार्टी, अब prelims पे focus. ठीक है? Now by this time you would have covered many areas like your polity, economy, geography, history, art and culture. You would be reading environment, say science and tech, and so on. Whatever. Now there's a problem that you will face. You will be like, after January, students are often start getting a bit nervous कि time कम है for prelims. अब prelims का time आ गया, prelims का time आ गया, right? How do I revise? So say if it's say 3 or 4 months or 4 months, say hypothetically, so students like, then somebody will tell you, and rightfully so, that in these 4 months you should at least revise 4 times. And you'll be like, yeah, 4 बार कैसे होगा? And somebody will tell you in the last 1 month, you should at least revise 2 times. Okay? You will, देखिए, एक तो क्या हो गया कि जुमला has become a national phenomenon. फेंकने की इस देश में और दुनिया में, तो देश तक हम क्यों रुके? कोई लिमिट ही नहीं रह गई. एवरी ईयर अभी रिजल्ट आ गया कि आना? मैंने स्टॉप कीपिंग ट्रैक नाउ. आ गया ना इस बार का? तो आ गया. आई डोंट नो, स्टॉप ट्रैकिंग, बट देयर वुड बी सम और द अदर ग्रेट पर्सनालिटी हु वुड से आई रियली डिडंट प्रिपेयर फॉर द एग्जाम, आई ओनली रेड न्यूज़पेपर. इसे कहा जाता है जुमला. ऐसा कोई नहीं है ना. भगवान भी आके देने लगे पेपर, उनको भी पढ़ाई करनी पड़ेगी. So there is no such thing as people not putting in effort and somebody was so brilliant and you are so dumb that you have been reading your, putting your heart and soul into the exam and somebody just comes and say, मैं तो पढ़ता ही नहीं था और मेरा तो ऐसे ही हो गया. ऐसा तो कोई नहीं. ठीक है. There are some people who will say that, and there are some very good examples also of some very sincere people who would write time and again that, look, I practice a lot of questions before the prelims. आप देखेंगे जाके, अगर आप कुछ अच्छे लोगों के ब्लॉग्स पढ़ेंगे, blog writing is a dying art in India, but still people do write blogs, and civil servants, aspirants also who do qualify the exam, some of them write blogs, share their answer scripts, their experience and everything. It's a good source which is available online. Okay, so if you go, some of them will tell you that, look, in the last 4 months I revised at least 5-6 times and I did a lot of MCQs. Okay, that I used to do, say 50 MCQs every day or 30 MCQs every day or whatever, or I solved a good number of 3000 MCQs before the prelims, or I did a lot of questions. So yeah, it's an honest answer to this question. But let me tell you this, that on an average, anybody who's a serious aspirant before the prelims revises at least bare minimum 4 to 5 times. Bare minimum. ज्यादा ही करते होंगे लोग, कम नहीं करता हूं. और कोई हो रहा मैं तो एक ही बार पढ़ा था मेरा हो गया, तो मैंने बताया जैसे आपको फेंकने की इस दुनिया में कोई लिमिट नहीं है. तो realistically speaking, you at least have to revise 4-5 times. Studying now, you should slowly start developing a strategy that how will you organize yourself so that January onwards to your prelims examination, you at least revise 4-5 times. You should have some understanding that how will you prepare in that January scenario also, post January also. Part of the solution begins now. How? इसको गूगल भी कर सकते जाके. Something that's called the Leitner system. ये यूपीएससी का ज्ञान नहीं है, नहीं मिलेगा आपको यूट्यूब वीडियो में, कोई ज्ञान प्रवाहक पॉडकास्ट में, कहीं नहीं मिलेगा. क्यों नहीं मिलेगा? क्योंकि मैंने डिवाइस किया नहीं. इसके लिए बुक में मिल जाएगा, बट बुक पढ़ने का चलन तो अब ऑल्सो इज अ डाइंग आर्ट ना. बट you will find that the Leitner system is something which is a neuropsychologically proven way of juggling huge amount of information in less amount of time. Okay, to give you a sense, and this applies to the mains exam also. If you apply to the mains and to the prelims, you are juggling with immense amount of information. Immense है ना, ब्रेथ बहुत ज्यादा है. 12-13 तो सब्जेक्ट ही होंगे, सब कुछ मिला लें आप, ऑप्शनल भी मिला लें और ऐसे भी मिला लें और भगवान जाने क्या क्या, राइट? So when you're juggling with immense amount of information, and if I was to come back to the prelims for now, the Leitner system approach says कि for every subject, say like for polity or for economy or for history, और यहाँ पे किसी भी सब्जेक्ट में लगा सकते हैं, आपने एक सब्जेक्ट को यहां रिवाइज करा ऐसे, लाइक वी वर सेइंग, 1, 3, 10, 27. By your third or fourth reading here, by the third or the fourth reading, what you do is you start making, you start making some sort of a short notes. जब आप एक महीने बाद पढ़ रहे हैं ना उसको, तो आप उस टॉपिक का एक शॉर्ट नोट बनाइए. Now when you're trying to make a short note, try to make it in the form of a card. आजकल मार्केट में आते रहते वाले कार्ड्स, पोस्ट कार्ड जैसे जो होते थे कार्ड्स, राइट, वैसे आते. What you can do is, while making these short notes, people have a habit, सर मैं पहले ही बना लेता हूँ, यहाँ पढ़ूंगा यही शॉर्ट नोट बना. यहाँ आप कभी जीवन में शॉर्ट नोट नहीं बना सकते. You will only make a long note. अब सब लिख देंगे आपके शॉर्ट नोट में, फिर वो लॉन्ग हो जाएगा ना, शॉर्ट तो नहीं रहेगा. So don't try to make your short notes in your first or second reading. It's a waste. You will add useless information. जब तक आप शॉर्ट नोट बना रहे हैं उसके पहले अगर आपने एमसीक्यू नहीं देखे और फिर भी आप बना रहे हैं तो आप उसमें सब लिख देंगे. It won't be short. And if it is not short and concise, it is not useful in a revision. While you're making a short note, you should be doing something also. Try to make it in a Q&A format. Meaning, say, suppose you're making a short note, say, on the Anglo-Maratha wars. ठीक है, ये आपने नहीं पढ़ा, but I'm just saying. Suppose you're making a short note on Anglo-Maratha wars. ठीक है, हमारे सिलेबस में है. तो on one side of the note, you write the name of some of the key treaties. Say the Treaty of Salabai. Okay, or you write, so this treaty was signed, for example, in 1782. On the back side, you try to write the provisions. So here on this side, you write what were the key provisions of the Treaty of Salabai. On the back side, you write down the provision. So what you're making is your own short notes in a Q&A based format. Or on one side, you say you write, discuss the key causes of the third battle of Panipat. और दूसरी साइड आपने वो 3 या 4 मेजर बैटल ऑफ पानीपत के पॉइंट्स लिख लिए. Why am I telling you this? Q&A फॉर्मेट में आपको करना है, क्योंकि this will help you here. What you will do is, say for modern India, say for 25 lectures, you made, hypothetically speaking, 100 such cards. Okay? आपने 100 सब टॉपिक्स पे शॉर्ट नोट बनाया, 100 कार्ड्स आपने बनाए. न्यू में पेपर A4 साइज के कार्ड नहीं, छोटे. पॉइंट इज टू मेक इट कंसाइज. अगर आपके शॉर्ट नोट्स आर नॉट एटलीस्ट 1/5 और बेटर 1/10 ऑफ योर लॉन्ग नोट्स, तो वो शॉर्ट नहीं है. और इसलिए बोल रहा हूं, पहले 1-2 बार पढ़ के मत बनाइएगा. ठीक है. और सबसे ज्यादा जोश कब होता है नोट्स बनाने का? पहले 1-2 महीने में. जोश की कमी कहां है? जब जोश चाहिए. सबसे ज्यादा जोश कब चाहिए? जनवरी के बाद, और तभी सबसे कम. So there is a mismatch. So you should know how to pace your innings for those who play cricket. It's about pacing your innings as well. So suppose you made such 100 cards on, say, history. Once you have made such 100 cards on history, you need to do an important thing. You need to keep these cards into 3 categories. What you need to do is, आपने उठाना है एक दिन 100 के 100 कार्ड और बैठ जाना है. ठीक है. या उसी दिन उठाने की जरूरत नहीं है, आप रोज 2-2 घंटे भी उठा सकते हैं. Today you are revising out of these 100 cards 20 cards. Okay, for 20 cards today, 20 cards tomorrow, ऐसे ऐसे करके आप रिवाइज करें. The 20 cards that you pick up today, you pick up the card, you see the question, and without turning to the answer, try to answer yourself. Suppose causes of Battle of Panipat है, आपने 3 cause लिखे हैं पीछे. You should try to recall. If you can recall all the 3 causes that you have written on the back side, put the card in, say, box A. If you recall one out of the 3 causes, if you recall 1 or 2 out of the 3 causes, yeah, 4 causes, you put it in box B. Or if you recall 0, yeah, 1 out of 3, you put it in box A. और यही आप सारे कार्ड्स के साथ करिए. What will happen? Say, out of the 100 cards, you will have something to the tune of 20 to 30 cards here, and you will have some 30 to 50 cards here, hypothetically speaking, and you will have some another, whatever, say, whatever, some 40 to 50 cards here, whatever, give or take. Okay. So what you have tried to do is divide your short notes also into 3 categories: box A, B, and C. Ones which you remember well, ones, this is the box that you remember well, okay, and poor. Now, when you have to revise जनवरी में, तो आप क्या करेंगे? आपके पास ये डब्बे होंगे ना आपके, इन डब्बों को उठाएंगे आप, एंड यू पिक अप एनी बॉक्स A, B, C initially, and suppose you pick up box B and you start revising again. See the question and try to answer. You can answer, say, this time all 3 out of 3, you shift that card to box A. If you are able to, you pick a card and out of the 3 points you are unable to recall even a single one, you shift the card to box C, and so on. Why am I telling you to do this? जनवरी में जब पहली बार पढ़ेंगे तो आप सारे बॉक्स रिवाइज करिए, ठीक है? And the position of cards will keep changing in the boxes dynamically. How well you remember and how less you remember. 1 month before the exam, the box you need to pick up first for all subjects is box C. मतलब बॉक्स सी आपने हिस्ट्री का भी रिवाइज करा, बॉक्स सी आपने इकोनॉमी का भी किया, पॉलिटी का भी किया, सारे सब्जेक्ट्स का किया. What it does is, in revision, the biggest sin, the biggest crime, blunder you can commit is that if you have to revise modern Indian history, you say कि सर मैं रिवाइज कर रहा हूं फुल स्टार्टिंग से एंड तक. ऐसी करते रिविजन कि सर फ्रॉम 1700 टू 1947. This is the worst way of revising. While revision, you should pick up areas and topics you forget the most, and your strategy should be in place that 1 month and 1 week before the exam, I know कि हिस्ट्री में मेरे को ये 20 कार्ड रिवाइज करने, क्योंकि यही तो है जो मैं भूलता हूं. Once you have read something 4-5 times, you will know that most of the things you don't forget, and there are some things that you will frequently forget. So if you tell a person whose preparation is solid कि 1 हफ्ता है पूरा सिलेबस कर लेगा रिवाइज, they will say yes, I'll do it. Those who are able to even revise the whole syllabus in 1 week, consciously or subconsciously, in most people, they will be subconsciously doing this, not consciously. आप कितने लोगों को जानते हैं जो डब्बे में कार्ड बना के रख के कार्ड से रिवाइज करते? कितने लोगों को जानते हैं? 10 में से एक को भी नहीं जानते, ठीक है. बट सम पीपल डू दिस सबकॉन्शियसली. फॉर एग्जाम्पल इन द बुक वो अपने साइड में एक कलर कोडिंग से स्टिकी कोड लगा देते हैं कि ये वाला पेज रिवाइज करना है सर मेरे नोट्स में से, या इंडेक्स में से कि यही 10 3 4 5 टॉपिक इसमें से रिवाइज करने हैं, बाकी तो मुझे याद है. तो सम पीपल डू दिस क्या, सबकॉन्शियसली. लेट मी टेल यू अबाउट एग्जाम्स विच आर इवन मोर कॉम्प्लिकेटेड देन यूपीएससी. देयर पीपल डू दिस कॉन्शियसली, क्योंकि आपके कितने 10-12 सब्जेक्ट हैं, 10-12 सब्जेक्ट्स हैं, पूरे सब्जेक्ट्स आप मिला लें ऑलमोस्ट फॉर ऑल द 4 पेपर्स एंड जीएस और ऑप्शनल मिला के 12-13 सब्जेक्ट्स हो गए. फॉर एग्जाम्पल से पीपल हु प्रिपेयर फॉर बीइंग डॉक्टर्स, नॉट एट द MBBS level but MD or DM level, they routinely read subjects around 18 or 19 subjects, not 12. If you talk to a person who's preparing for those exams, they will always tell you that I've made these cards. Even an average student there will make these cards. Why? Because the information is just so much. Okay. So it's always better that if you're doing something subconsciously and you have seen people do something subconsciously which has worked for them, you learn from it. Okay. This is now professionally known as a Lentia system. आप सब तो वो वाले लोग हैं स्मार्टफोन वाले, इसकी एप्स भी आने लगे हैं. What you can do, आपने जो भी लिखा, अपने नोट्स बनाए ना आपने, ये इसकी फोटो खींच के आप उसे ऐप में डाल दीजिए. इट विल ऑटोमेटिकली थ्रो अप अ रिविजन कार्ड एवरी डे. सुबह उठ के इंस्टाग्राम नहीं खुलेगा, द ऐप विल प्रॉम्प्ट यू, ओके दिस इज योर रिविजन कार्ड फॉर द डे. टेक्नोलॉजी कैन कम टू योर रेस्क्यू ऑल्सो. Most of the times it won't, but some of the times it can if you use it wisely. So Lentia system is a very proven system. आप थोड़ा सा ऑनलाइन जाके देखेंगे तो आपको मिल जाएगा. Okay, so this is a very effective and a time efficient system. It also answers another question: when should you start making short notes and how should you revise using those short notes? What I've told you is a broad strategy. ठीक है. अब इसमें फाइन ट्वीक्स भी होंगे, आप थोड़ा उसको अपने हिसाब से भी मॉडिफाई करेंगे. ठीक है. कोई एक वन साइज फिट्स पॉलिसी डज नॉट अप्लाई टू एनीबडी, टू एवरीबडी, बट दिस इज समथिंग दैट यू शुड बी डूइंग. अगर मैं आपको एक किताब बताऊं आज जो आपको पढ़ने में बहुत जीवन में फायदा देगा, है ना, जिसका यूपीएससी से कोई लेना देना नहीं है, इट्स अ बुक very small, learning how to it's by Barry Schwartz. And just one second, it's by Barbara Oakley, but let me, in fact, yeah, it's by Barbara Oakley, but just wait, just wait. There's one, in fact, there's a new version which has come up just now, I think. Just no, there are many such books, but I want to tell you something which is very sharp, very small and concise. And which one? No. Nope. This one is by Barbara Oakley, but I want to. Okay. Just one second. Barbara Oakley is a PhD in cognitive psychology from University of California. It's a very good book. just 1 second. I want this another one, which is in fact okay. एक और बड़ा सिंपल सोल्यूशन है, नहीं पढ़ी आप किताब, लर्निंग हाउ टू लर्न. There's a website also by this name. You can go and find their small 5-10 minute lectures online. 5 minutes के, okay, and it's there on, I think it should be there on YouTube as well. If it's not there, आप just learning how to learn by Barbara Oakley टाइप करेंगे तो आपको काफी कुछ मिल जाएगा through the channel, or you can get the book also. It's good. आइडिया ये नहीं कि सब कुछ छोड़ के पढ़ना है. जब रीडिंग टू रीड बुक, लर्निंग टू रीड बुक्स इज ऑल्सो लाइक अ मेंटल एक्सरसाइज. आप कभी भी अभी आप किताब उठाएंगे, कोई भी किताब उठाएंगे, लर्निंग हाउ टू लर्न, हाँ मिल जाएगा आपको Amazon पे भी मिल जाएगा. तो कोई भी बुक आप उठाएंगे तो ये बुक्स वो बुक्स नहीं है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल दिस इज नॉट अ बुक दैट आई टोल्ड यू कि आप सब कुछ छोड़ के अभी पहले यही पढ़ूंगा फिर ही कुछ और पढ़ूंगा. इवनिंग विद अ कप ऑफ टी यू कैन रीड one small chapter and be done with it. There's no need to see. A book need not be consumed like a buffet dinner. Okay, try to make it a small part of your everyday life. See, 5-10 pages you read, it won't be heavy on your brain also, and must be read. This is a book, if you are planning to read, please read it in the least productive part of your day, not the most productive. इस बुक को पढ़ने को काम को आप काम ना माने. It should be, rather than reading a WhatsApp forward, a Instagram reel, this will help. Slowly cultivating the habit to read is extremely important for a UPSC aspirant. Your reading speed is a function of how much you read. It's not a function of how fast you read. It's a function of how much you read. Are you aware of a very simple fact that we don't read the words in the sentences? We often only read the starting letter and the end letter of a word. It has been neuroscience based proven, especially in languages which are your primary language. तो प्राइमरी लैंग्वेज में आप एक शब्द का पूरा सारे लेटर्स को नहीं पढ़ रहे हैं, आप उसका बाद एक स्टार्ट और एंड पढ़ते हैं और आप बीच में अपने आप आपका दिमाग, योर ब्रेन इज अ अमेजिंग इंस्ट्रूमेंट. ओके, इट वर्क्स इन अ सर्टेन वे. यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड हाउ इट वर्क्स एंड देन पुट इट टू यूज. योर स्पीड ऑफ रीडिंग विल ऑटोमैटिकली इंप्रूव इफ यू स्टार्ट रीडिंग मोर. इफ यू रीड लेस, your speed will be less. Okay, and there is no short way of, and if there is one, I am not aware. Okay, so slowly you can do that and this will help you. Now any question that you want to ask me till here? Ji. देखिए, what I just discussed with you is if you're appearing in the examination next year. Okay, now even if you're appearing for an examination later, the principles of revision will remain the same, right? Because, and the idea must be that if you are to master a subject, that's how you master a subject. If you have more time, all that you can do is that for some topics which are important, you have the luxury of reading in more depth. But that depth will happen maybe later, not in the first reading. The purpose of the first reading has to be, there is no upper limit of how much you can read, but there is definitely a lower limit. So the first objective is that if you were to try to learn how to swim, you don't directly go into the ocean. You first go to the swimming pool, and in the swimming pool also you first go to the shallow side, जहां पानी कम है. फिर धीमे धीमे आप बढ़ते जाइए जहां पानी ज्यादा है, फिर तो आप पानी पे सर्फिंग भी कीजिए, जो आपकी मर्जी, राइट? So that is something, but this is something as a strategy you should follow even if you have to give the examination, maybe if not the next year or after that. Because a disciplined preparation is very much required. Okay? Meaning जो काम 1 साल में हो सकता है उसके लिए 2 साल ना लगाएं. Okay? For example, I tell you the worst piece of advice, आप किसी को दे सकते हैं तो वो ये दे सकते हैं कि यूपीएससी आपको 6 अटेम्प्ट दे रहा है, आप 6 के 6 देना. किसी को श्राप देना है ना, श्राप. इफ यू वांट टू बोर्ड इल फॉर समवन, you should say कि you should give all the 6 attempts. The best way to a poor life, to a poor physical health, to a poor mental health is to watch 12th fail and give 6 attempts and assume that we are living in a world. I know this is not the inspiration you're looking for. आपको पिक्चर बहुत इंस्पायरिंग लगी होगी और बहुत लोगों को लगी होगी कि अगर आपका यूपीएससी में नहीं हुआ तो आटा चक्की या चाय ही बेचेंगे. देखिए मेरा तो मानना है चाय बेचने से बहुत प्रोग्रेस हो जाती है आजकल देश में, ठीक, पर वो एक अलग बात. बट द आइडिया दैट यू शुड गिव योर लाइफ टू द एग्जाम is the most ridiculous idea ever. Give disciplined attempts. Make it count. Give your best. But don't give your life for them. Nothing deserves your life. You only deserve your life. उसको जिए, अच्छे से जिए. Give 1 or 2 or 3 attempts maximum. If it happens, great. If it doesn't happen, it's whose loss? Definitely not yours. Whether it is the country's loss or not, that the country can decide. It is not yours. Because these are the most productive years of your life. If in 2 or 3 attempts you don't see a clear progress, means it is time for honest introspection and do one of the 2 things. Either course correction, कि जो आपकी कमी है उसको आप इंप्रूव कीजिए, और क्विट. फर्स्ट क्लास में आए, क्विटिंग की बात हो रही है. क्विटिंग की बात नहीं हो रही, छोड़ने की बात नहीं हो रही. इट इज अबाउट विजडम. सपोज यू गिविंग द अटेम्प्ट एंड यू शुड ट्राई, योर फर्स्ट अटेम्प्ट शुड बी योर लास्ट अटेम्प्ट, शुड बी योर ऑब्जेक्टिव. बट एट टाइम्स ऑब्जेक्टिव आर नॉट मेट. सपोज यू गिव द फर्स्ट अटेम्प्ट, आपका प्रीलिम्स हो गया, आपका मेंस नहीं हुआ, ठीक है, you're on the right track. You made it to the first 10,000, you're on the right track. Second attempt, hypothetically speaking, you gave the mains in the first attempt, आपके 70 marks less थे cut off से. In the second attempt, you gave the mains, you were 10 marks less than the cut off for the mains. You made clear substantive progress. 5-10 नंबर कम रह गए. You should be looking at, can I improve this? Can I make myself better? And go for the third attempt if you want to go. Otherwise, do something else. What should not be done? 3 बार से प्रीलिम्स ही नहीं हुआ है, अभी तो 3 और साल हैं. मत करिए अपने साथ ऐसा. अगर आपने 3 साल में कोर्स करेक्शन नहीं किया, आपका प्रीलिम्स ही नहीं हो रहा है, इसका मतलब ये नहीं है दैट यू आर यूजलेस और वर्थलेस. बिकॉज इन इंडिया वी एज अर्बन मिडिल क्लास इंडियंस डिसाइड द वर्थ ऑफ एन इंडिविजुअल बाय एन एग्जाम. क्या है? इन अ कंट्री which is 1.4 billion, 18% of the world's population, are only 800 smart people born. If that is the case, then we must say that we have very poor genes in this country. क्योंकि 800 ही होशियार लोग पैदा हो रहे हैं, बाकी तो सब खच्चर है. Don't let an examination decide your worth. That doesn't mean what I'm trying to tell you. I'm trying to tell you a very fundamental problem which people don't get it. people who often give larger number of attempts often end up with mental health problems. It's not something that anybody will talk to you. Definitely not in the first lecture. But if you are fit enough to vote, which I am assuming all of you are fit enough to at least take cognizance of the complexities of life. है ना? We are not talking to a person who अभी 10th class में है, अभी adolescence में आप चल रहे. We assume एग्जाम मानता ही है ना कि आप ग्रेजुएट तो होंगे, 21 साल की उम्र तो आपकी होगी, है ना, और 18 पे तो आप वोट करने लायक हो जाते, राइट? तो you are expected to deal with things with more maturity, more insight, and develop a more critical way of thinking. I am right now helping you for once think of the examination itself in more critical terms. आप पढ़ेंगे ना, जब क्वेश्चन आएगा तो आपको क्वेश्चन के नीचे लिखा रहेगा critically evaluate, analyze, discuss. What I am discussing with you is the merits or the shortcomings of the exam. That this examination, like any other examination, will suffer from one problem. And what is that problem? That it will make a lot of false errors. Meaning that the evaluating system only has to select 800 people. The argument is not that these 800 people are not worth it. They are definitely worth it. They put in the effort, hard work और luck. जब इन तीनों का संगम होता है, तब होता है selection. But that doesn't mean that the people who did not make it in the interview or in the mains, they are not serious or they are not capable. होता है थोड़ा बहुत लक. अरे देखिए, दिस इज विजडम. आपने जो सवाल पूछा बहुत अच्छा था, लक का क्या थे, क्या रोल. विजडम टेल्स यू अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट. देयर इज अ फेमस थिंग, और इस पे एक बार ऐसे भी आया हुआ है, दैट देयर इज अ डिफरेंस बिटवीन इंटेलिजेंस एंड विजडम. दैट गॉड must give me the courage to change what I can, and the intelligence to accept what I can't, and the wisdom to differentiate between the two. आप क्या बदल सकते हैं और क्या नहीं बदल सकते हैं, इन दोनों के बीच में डिफरेंशिएट करने को क्या कहेंगे? विजडम. ये विजडम क्यों जरूरी है? सो दैट यू फोकस ऑन व्हाट यू कैन चेंज एंड नॉट वरी अबाउट व्हाट इज नॉट इन योर हैंड्स. लक. आई विल गिव यू एग्जाम्पल. एग्जाम के 5 दिन पहले आपको हो गया डेंगू. ये दिल्ली में बहुत होता है डेंगू. डी फॉर दिल्ली एंड डी फॉर डेंगू. व्हाई? अभी तो गर्मी है, फिर होगी बारिश और फिर होगा डेंगू, है ना? तो आपको हो गया एग्जाम के 1 दिन पहले डेंगू, तो हो गया डेंगू, और डेंगू हो गया तो डेंगू तो गेम ओवर हो गया. लक. लक मे टेक मेनी फॉर्म्स, बट कैन यू कंट्रोल लक? यू ऑब्वियसली कांट, अनलेस यू बिलीव इन गॉड नोज सम कुछ और होगा, यहां आपने कुछ पहन लिया और वहां कुछ पहन लिया और लक आपके कंट्रोल में आ जाए, तो मुझे नहीं पता. But most likely you cannot control luck. So worrying about luck is not a sign of being a wise individual. Understanding that despite your best efforts, luck at times may outsmart you. Suppose you contest election, you win all the election also. You are destined to be the next supreme leader of the country, and you die in a helicopter crash. लक. हुआ ना उनके साथ, द ईरानियन रईसी. लक. So luck is there, but we can't do shit about luck. But we can do what we can and have the wisdom and the humility to accept. Very few, but you will find every year a number of people who get selected in the exam. You will find few such people who will vocally say, I did put in a lot of effort and I was lucky. And they may have their own narration of what worked in their favor. But luck is something that we really can't control. Hard work is something that we can control. Wise people who achieve success often say, I did the hard work, but I was lucky as well. Arrogant people who succeed, ऐसा नहीं है arrogant people don't succeed. Arrogant people full on succeed. Arrogant people will tell you, it is my hard work ने मुझे स्टार बना दिया. They are arrogant, they're not fools. Because it is, nobody is denying that their hard work yielded them success. But a wise man knows that hard work is not enough. But the wise man also knows that hard work is the only thing that they can control. Buddha in Buddhism says the same. Okay. So wisdom is something that dawns upon with क्या? Age. कई बार कहा जाता है. A 20-year-old is likely to be more hardworking. A talented, hardworking 20-year-old is more likely to be arrogant. The same fellow, 20 years later, is more likely to recognize the role of luck. You see that in sports all the time. A great player may end up with an injury and the career is over. That is luck. So luck is there. But we don't need to worry too much about it. We need to accept it and then work. अब पहले दिन के लिए बहुत ज्यादा फिलॉसफी हो जाएगा. बट अब आपको लग रहा था फालतू आपने हमारा टाइम खराब किया टॉकिंग अबाउट विजडम. विजडम पे भी फिलोसॉफिकल ऐसे आया हुआ है. सो व्हाट आई एम ट्राइंग टू डू इन दिस क्लास, देखिए बड़ा एकदम कार्डिनल रूल है इस क्लास में. व्हेन आई एम स्टैंडिंग इन फ्रंट ऑफ यू, your 2.5 hours are very valuable, so are mine. I make it a point to not discuss things which are not relevant for the exam. At times there may be some pun here and there, but the pun also drives back a larger point. ठीक है, तो आप एक चीज समझे कि आपको जो करना है अभी वो ये चीज करिए. I'll not take any other questions that you have. Anything you want to ask, Abhi? I'll not take any more time for you today, because my purpose for today's class is done. Okay. Next class onwards, we'll spend full 2.5 hours. So that is when the teaching really begins. The books पे अपन बातें सारी करेंगे as we'll go ahead. Okay. And art and culture के लिए भी मैं आपको सबसे पहले ये बोलूंगा कि आपको कोई नितिन फिंगानिया पढ़ने की जरूरत नहीं है. आप क्लास नोट्स पढ़िए और फाइन आर्ट्स 11th क्लास एनसीईआरटी वो पढ़िए. ठीक है, और उसके अलावा जो पढ़ना है वो सिलेक्टिवली इनरिच करिए. इसके लिए एक नितिन फिंगानिया पढ़ने की जरूरत नहीं है. जितनी मोटी किताब है यूपीएससी में उतनी ही वो वर्थलेस है, ये मैं आपको बता दूं. क्योंकि व्हाट यू नीड इज कंसाइज सोर्सेस. विकिपीडिया पढ़ लीजिए, उसमें तो सब है. राइट. स्पेक्ट्रम एक बुक आती है, एंड विल टॉक अबाउट बुक्स मोर व्हेन वी विल. स्पेक्ट्रम एक बुक आती है, वो किताब जो है पिछले 10 साल में डबल हो गई है, डबल. स्पेक्ट्रम मॉडर्न इंडियन हिस्ट्री की जो बुक आती है, छोटी सी ना, वो सस्ते से कागज पे छपी हुई. आपको पता है वो सस्ते कागज पे क्यों छपती है? आपने सोचा कभी? देखिए ये भी सोचने में क्या है, सोच सकते हैं. इट्स अ स्मॉल बुक. इट इज, डू यू सी इट प्रिंटेड इन अ बिग फॉर्मेट like in a A4 page? No, it is like this. Why? First thing, it prevents the book from photocopy piracy. In India, problem is this: everybody wants everything for free. फ्री तो अच्छा लगेगा, मैं आपको फ्री देना चाहता हूं और आप फ्री लेना चाहें, पर मैं देना नहीं चाहता फ्री, पर आप तो लेना ही चाहते हैं फ्री. So firstly, it prevents the photocopy. Secondly, keeps the cost also for them low. Okay, because it has to be affordable for people. Okay, that's another thing. So that's their rationale for doing whatever. But there's a reason why the book has almost doubled. मोटी हो गई वो. आप 5 साल पुरानी स्पेक्ट्रम को देखिए और आज की स्पेक्ट्रम को देखिए, आप देखेंगे वो मोटी होती जा रही है. वो क्यों होती जा रही है? बिकॉज एवरी ईयर जो भी क्वेश्चन आता है उसके रिलेटेड जो भी चीज और होती है वो उसमें जोड़ देते हैं, फिर आपको लगता है सब इसी में से आता है। ऑब्वियसली जो भी क्वेश्चन आए उसके देख के उन्होंने और जो जोड़ना है उसको जोड़ दिया, लेकिन जो डिलीट करना है वो डिलीट नहीं किया। और किताब जितनी मोटी होती है सबको उतनी अच्छी लगती है, राइट? आपको वो ऑब्जेक्टिव नहीं है। दैट्स व्हाई आई एम सेइंग नितिन सिंघानिया मैं आपको वैसे बता दूं, थोड़ा सा मेरा बहुत ही डाइवर्जेंट ओपिनियन, कलंक है किताब के अंदर, कलंक, किताब नहीं है। देखिए, व्हाट इज अ गुड टेक्स्ट बुक? अ गुड टेक्स्ट बुक, दे नॉट, आर दीज बुक टॉट एनीवेयर इन द इंडियन यूनिवर्सिटी सिस्टम? कहीं नहीं पढ़ाई जाती, क्योंकि वो क्या है, कॉपी पेस्ट। वो ने एक जगह से उठाते हैं, कॉपी पेस्ट करते हैं, वो किताब बन जाती है। फिर आप किताब में से ढूंढते रहिए इसमें से पढ़ना क्या है। सो इट्स नॉट अ गुड स्टैंडर्ड टेक्स्ट बुक। जैसे मॉडर्न इंडिया में बात करेंगे, इट्स लाइक बिपिन चंद्रा। बिपिन चंद्रा की 2-3 आती है, ओरिएंट ब्लैक स्वान वाली है, विल टॉक अबाउट इट। तो जब व्हेन आई विल टेल यू कि एक बुक पढ़ते हुए आपका एक्सपेक्टेशन है कि आप लिखना सीखें, जितनी अच्छी बुक की लैंग्वेज होगी उतना अच्छा आप आर्टिकुलेशन सीखेंगे। जब बुक ही में सेंटेंस पूरा नहीं बन रहा हो तो आपके आंसर में तो नहीं बनेगा, राइट? तो नितिन सिंघानिया द वेरी फैक्चुअल कंपाइलेशन, nothing more, nothing less, and which has even started becoming more voluminous. So one problem is it doesn't focus more on articulation, sentence formulation, enriching your ability to present a point. What it is good on is facts. Fact उसमें आपको मिलेंगे, लेकिन उन्होंने फैक्ट्स भी इतने बढ़ा दिए हैं that it's a minefield of facts. So you will be left doubting कि इसमें से क्या पढ़ूं और क्या छोड़ूं। इसलिए नहीं, फाइन आर्ट्स एंड योर क्लास नोट्स एंड डूइंग अ लॉट ऑफ एमसीक्यूज, क्योंकि एमसीक्यू से जो एडिशनल नॉलेज मिलेगी उसको आप जोड़िए। तो दैट विल डिस्कस लेटर। एनीथिंग एल्स? कूल। सो 2nd of June 5 PM विल स्टार्ट मॉडर्न इंडियन हिस्ट्री। ठीक है, यही same place, same time, same person me, same person you. Tomorrow PSIR. The rest of the schedule is as it continues. What I am not privy to that. Shubhanshu ji, maybe. Let me just ask. The PSIR classes, I think there's no change in schedule. Otherwise, it would have been communicated to you. Whatever is your schedule. कहाँ हो रही है आपकी क्लास अभी? You can ask them, they'll let you know. ठीक है, they will know when. Anything else? Done. See you on the 2nd. That's when we start. Thank you.